Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 6 Things We Learned from Morecambe FC 3 at Bradford City 0. If you do go on to enjoy today's video, please make sure to drop a like on there for me. If you're trying to 80 likes on today's video, that'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're new as well. We are on the road to 8,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed if you haven't already with that post notification bell on. It's free to do so and it does massively help out. Drop a comment in as well down in the comment section down below. Get your thoughts in on today's game and all the things that we do go on to talk about in today's video. Now, we could have genuinely made this a 6,000 things that we've learned from the game yesterday because there was so many bad things that happened. There's not a single green box in this video. I think when you've been beaten 3-0 by a Derek Adams team, there's absolutely no chance you can give anyone a green box. There's a couple yellows in there, but the majority are red. It's not going to be the most joyful of videos to watch today, but yeah, I'm sure me and obviously my co-host Frank, we're gonna have a bit of a rant today about some of the criminals that we watched trying to attempt to play football yesterday because it was absolutely shocking. And we're going to start out then with Mr. Richie Smallwood, and he is getting a red box. I mean, where do you even start with this, man? I defended him so much towards the back end of last season and especially the start of this season as well. And yesterday was just an absolute disgrace. That second goal, every time I watch that video back, it genuinely makes my blood boil. Not only does he, fair enough, you've miskicked the ball, then he doesn't challenge for the header, he doesn't try and win the ball back, he's walking and jogging back, and then he just gives up at one point and he just stands there and watches. The defending's comical, the goalkeeping's not much better, it's a calamity of errors. But when your club captain, the man who's meant to be leading the team, the man who you're meant to be looking up to, he's just strolling around the pitch like he's doing us a favour even turning up. That is so disrespectful to not only his teammates, but especially the fans as well, who spend their hard-earned money to watch him just stroll around. And like I say, I've defended him so much, but yesterday was completely inexcusable. Even when he's been playing bad previously, I've tried to defend it, but not putting in effort and playing like that is absolutely unforgivable. And Josh Wright got rightfully hounded from that clip away at Barnsley. I think it was in the Papa John's Trophy or whatever it was called at the time. Might have been the Checker Trade Trophy. But that Smallwood clip is 10 times worse than the Josh Wright clip, and he absolutely cannot be anywhere near the matchday squad on Saturday against Crewe. It's not an overreaction or anything like that, because that sets an example. He's your captain, and I know it's only a piece of material, but he is the man who everybody should be looking up to as a leader, and that is not the sort of example you can be setting. And if he is involved in the squad completely at all on Saturday, Hughes is going to make a massive error because it's not going to go down well with the fans. Yes, he was sarcastically cheered off and booed off, and sometimes I think it has been harsh for Smallwood in the past. Yesterday, it was more than deserved. It was absolutely unacceptable. He gave away the free kick as well for the first goal. I feel like he didn't really need to commit for the slide tackle there, and obviously Lewis should do 1,000 times better with it. But he had an absolute nightmare yesterday, and it wasn't just a bad performance. It was a complete lack of effort, which is completely unforgivable.
Yeah, I was another person who was slandering Smallwood last season, especially last season. I'm probably one of his biggest critics. I thought this season we'd finally turned the page and Smallwood was looking good again. But that performance, I mean, if he ever captains Bradford City again, he's a very, very lucky man. The performance we saw yesterday is just not good enough. I mean, lifelong Bradford fans like Bobby Poynton, who came off the bench yesterday, what kind of example does that set to you? A lifelong fan who showed more leadership and more determination than Smallwood did that game. Absolutely not good enough. Like you said, gives away the foul for the first one, and then that second one, it is absolutely atrocious. Just jogging back. Josh Wright did that in the Checker Trade Trophy, got absolutely hounded for it, as you said. But let's not forget, this man has done it in a league competitive match, in a game that we needed to win away from home, and to try and boost our momentum going into Crewe Alexandria, which I think is going to be a massive test as well, because they did really well against Walsall, despite only drawing 2-2. Nearly double their passes, nearly 70% possession. They're going to be a real test at Valley Parade next week. But back onto Smallwood, like you said, if he is anywhere near the matchday squad, it's just not good enough. And you've got to look at Hughes if he is in the matchday squad as well. What kind of manager are you? Do you just accept that just because he's the captain? A lot of times last season, he put in horrible performances and he continued to play week in and week out. And what point do you just start not taking it anymore? Because there's plenty of better players off the bench. Ryan East was one of them that would have been absolutely fantastic yesterday. He always gives 110%, tracks back, exactly what a midfielder should do. And Richie Smallwood just didn't even look harsh yesterday. I'm absolutely baffled as to what on earth went wrong yesterday. He just wow, I'm lost for words, really. I'm not sure who would be captain next game, to be honest, but it can't be Smallwood, and he can't be playing.
Yeah, I think with the armband situation, we've had so many different people take the armbands. I think Smallwood's been subbed off in every game so far. I think Rideout's had it, Cook's had it a couple of times, Lewis has had it as well. So it's really interesting to see that we don't really have a set vice captain. Stubbs has it a little bit in pre-season as well. And I think he has to send a statement out and not let him be involved in the squad. And he should be rightfully disciplined for it. I completely can accept somebody playing poorly. You know, it happens. Not everyone is going to play as a 10 out of 10 every week, but not putting in effort is completely unforgivable. And you cannot be the Bradford City captain. Like what I say, it is only a piece of material at the end of the day, but it has a deeper meaning. And you cannot be allowing the man who sets the example to set that sort of an example. It's just completely unforgivable and, yeah, absolutely unacceptable from Richie Smallwood. We'll move on from him then, because I could absolutely rant and rave about how disgusting his performance was yesterday. Someone who made his first appearance in a Bradford City shirt was Lewis Richards, his debut. I'd give him a yellow box. Like I say, you can't give anyone a green box, but I thought he showed some nice promise, got forward quite a lot, was athletic. I thought first half a little bit shaky, took him a little bit to settle into it, but second half put some really good crosses into the box, and it looks like we've signed a good play here, and I think he's been brought in to play more as a left wing back. Potentially we could be now moving to a back four already, so that might potentially be a square peg in a round hole, but he can play left-sided centre-half, so I presume he's just someone who can cover anywhere on that left side. I think he'll be more than fine as a left-back in a back four. He's certainly offer a lot more than Liam Rideout, in my opinion, and he looks like a decent signing. From what I've seen, there were a few poor performances from the large majority of the team, but I think he was one of the few exceptions yesterday. I thought he was someone who gave his all. Obviously got subbed off. I'm going to presume the only reason for bringing him off would be fitness, and he's not quite up to speed. He's not played too much first team men's football, but I thought overall he had a pretty solid game, and I'd like to see more of him, to be honest.
The fans were a bit uncertain when it first got announced. Obviously, Academy Player of the Year at Wolves, spent time on loan at Harrogate, but didn't play too many games, so he had a lot to prove coming in at left wing back, especially considering he only signed the day before. I thought he did pretty well. There was instances where he made a few mistakes at the back, and at points he was actually the highest player up the pitch, so I liked him in an attacking sense, but I think he was a bit anonymous that first half. Definitely kicked on the second half, and I agree with you. I just think if he was brought off to bring Rideout on, I don't understand the reason behind that. He had a pretty good game yesterday, and if he was getting brought off for that reason, it can only be for fitness, really, or just some sort of injury or niggle that he sustained during the game. So, yeah, Lewis Richardson, I'd like to see him more at left wing back, but like you said, we saw a back four in the second half. Obviously, McDonald came on for Kelly. I wouldn't say it worked, but it was probably better to watch than a five back. So I'm not sure what we change around. Maybe drop Smallwood for McDonald and play the back four that kind of ended the game. At Morecambe with Richardson in there, you could maybe look at bringing Kelly back in, Platt, Stubbs. There's a lot of options in the four back, and then I think obviously Brad Halliday needs to start regardless, right wing back or right back, because Oyegoke was just painful to watch yesterday, like many of the other players that were on the pitch. But yeah, Lewis Richardson, good debut for me.
Yeah, I thought, like I say, overall he's very solid, showed some nice things. And I think on a debut, you always do want to impress, and especially when you've been beaten 3-0 away from home. He certainly had a warm welcome to life at Bradford City, because it doesn't really get much worse than what it was yesterday. But we'll move on from him then. You know, it's great to see him have a pretty solid debut overall. The man who we've briefly mentioned there, who was subbed on for Lewis Richards, Liam Rideout, on the pitch for about, I'd say, 15, 20 minutes, something like that. And just, I don't even have words to describe how bad this man is. He doesn't start for any team in League Two. Not Crawley, who were favourites to be relegated. Not Colchester. He's absolutely shocking. And the fact that he got offered a new contract at the time, I thought it was criminal. And now I've seen him play a handful of games so far this season. He's just simply not good enough. The penalty is just a calamity of errors. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know if it's him or McDonald who actually gives the penalty away. It looks like a bit of a dive for me. But the way Rideout just gets spun every single time, he doesn't offer any positive attributes. He's got no pace. He's not great in the air. He's poor technically. He's not good going forward. He can't defend. And it's so infuriating to watch, because I would have genuinely rather see Richards play. Even if he was getting tired and couldn't really do much running, he still provides more of a threat, and he's more useful than Liam Rideout, in my opinion. I just thought it was an absolutely shocking performance from him. And the fact that we've given him a new contract was one of many poor decisions we made over the last couple of seasons, but that has got to be right up there. He's nowhere near good enough to be playing in the Football League anymore, in my opinion. I think it's an absolute crime that he got off the new deal, and he's still playing week in, week out, whether he's starting or as a sub. He offers no impact. And when I think we were 2-0 down at the time, 1-0, 2-0 down at the time when he came on. I think we were 2-0 down. It just doesn't make sense why you'd then bring Liam Rideout on when you need at least 2, probably 3 goals to try and get something out of the game. I don't really know what the thinking was behind that. It just didn't make sense to me. But yeah, he had an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, just painful to watch once again. I mean, how many times have we slated Rideout this season for performances, and he continues and continues to play week in, week out. Like I said, regardless whether it's off the bench or not, it's just not someone we can offload either. You've offered him a new contract. It's going to be difficult to upload in the same summer. It's another massive, massive mistake. When we first brought him in on that contract that he got in the summer, we all thought it was going to be some sort of backup, maybe squad rotation, who knows, but he got so many starts at the start. He's getting countless opportunities, and Hughes he's not showing any kind of, he's just accepting it. There's not many people we can bring from the reserves. The bench is just so weak. It's just no one off the bench probably offers anything at the moment. And it's just, the summer has been so underwhelming, and Liam Rideout's given a new contract. He's absolutely criminal. I don't even know if we can offload him in January because he's that bad. I'm not sure anyone's going to want him, to be honest. That's the plain simple fact of it. We'd obviously have to get a fee from him as well, and I would happily pay a fee just to see Rideout never play for this club again. It's painful to watch, gives away the penalty, and we went 2-0 down, and we brought Poynton on, which is fair enough, but that second goal went in, and Hughes orders Rideout to come on. We're 2-0 down, we've just conceded a second, and your thought is to bring in I wouldn't even call him defensive, just a left back when we need a goal. It is baffling. Yeah, it's just someone to be put in the way, like a mannequin, for example. It's not an attacking substitution, and we should have brought on Derbyshire earlier if we're going to go for that kind of thing, even though Derbyshire's probably not up to speed, to be honest. I'm not sure why he's even here anymore. He should just be a coach, if I'm being honest. He's too old. It's just not what we need anymore. There's lots of gaps, and the left back is one, and Rideout needs to go for me. We need to have a better bench because it's just so poor. We go behind on occasions and there's just no one to bring off the bench. Every sub's just so underwhelming. It just doesn't impact the game whatsoever. The only sub that did impact the game was Bobby Poynton. We'll get on to him later. But yeah, just Rideout is just so poor. I can't see him ever again.
And as bad as Rideout was, the rest of the defence can't get away with it. Stubbs had an absolute shocker again yesterday. I don't know what's going on with Sam Stubbs, but so far this season he's been abysmal. Platt wasn't much better. Kelly again, just absolutely terrible. Oyegoke, shocking. Halliday, pretty anonymous as well. Defensively, every single one of them should be really ashamed of the way they went about their business yesterday. And I know it might be a little bit tough when you've been playing a back 3 for a number of months now, and suddenly you're going back to a back 4 and you're trying to adjust to how you were playing last season. And I presume they won't have really been working on a back 4 with his been playing Saturday, Tuesday so much and starting out the season playing this 3 or 5 at the back. And I just think overall there was just so many poor defensive errors in there, and it seems like every game we're making 1 or 2 really poor defensive errors, and it's massively costing us. And we'll get on to Harry Lewis in a minute as well. I don't know what's happened to him this season. Absolutely shocking. And you look at the recruitment and you look at the options off the bench, like what you mentioned there, and there's just nothing. I know we've got a couple of injuries at the moment, like Walker, Chapman, Oliver, but there's just no quality on the bench at all. You look on the bench, you need a goal, you're bringing on Emmanuel Sidibe, potentially, Matt Derbyshire. It's just simply not good enough. And like I say, I understand we've got a couple of injuries, but you need to have real strength in depth. You should be 1 week, have someone not in the squad, and then you should still be able to start them the next week. That's the type of squad rotation that you need. You need to have 2022 starters in there, and you can field 2 starting 11s, and the quality difference would not really be that much. And it's clear to see who's a starter, who's a backup, and like what I say, that comes down to budget and being able to recruit that sort of stuff. And again, we'll get onto that in a moment, but it's just so frustrating having no options off the bench. And I do feel partially, ever so slightly sorry for Hughes from that point of view. But again, he's still part of that recruitment. And I know we can only work within the budget that we've got. Again, comes down to Stefan Rupp, lack of investment. It's just a massive, I don't really know what the right analogy is. Basically, it starts from the top and it trickles all the way down. And yeah, it's just so frustrating. I mean, that was all about Liam Rideout. But it comes from the top, lack of significant investment, lack of any investment really means you've got a budget where you have to sign on players like Liam Rideout, and it's just costing us every single week. We mentioned Bobby Poynton briefly there. He's getting a yellow box from me. Obviously, like I say, we can't give any green boxes out, but it was great to see him make his competitive debut, and I thought he looked really good. He wanted to be on the ball. He wanted to pick the ball up, playing some nice passes, had some good turns at times as well, and I thought he really did influence the game. Like I say, was he 19 years of age, I think, something like that, and for him to influence the game 10 times more than what your experienced pros were doing, I think you've got to give him massive credit for that. Again, he's a Bradford City fan. He's been in the stands. He knows what it takes to get the fans on board. And you've seen it in the past where the academy players have been the scapegoat. But I thought Poynton, and I think going forward as well, he's going to get more minutes because he's giving 110%. He always works hard. And you've got to give him a lot of credit for that. And like I say, it was great to see him get his competitive first-team debut for the football club. And he deserves it as well, to be honest. From what I've seen of him so far, he adds real quality. He adds real intent and purpose with his passes. And I was really impressed with what I saw from Bobby Poynton yesterday.
I'd even debate starting him, to be honest, at Crewe Alexandria. He's the only player that's showed any sort of fight, especially with that four-back as well. He kind of gives an opportunity to start using the wingers. Obviously, we don't have much in terms of wingers, but I think Tyler Smith, or was it Clark Adore, that was kind of operated on that left side of the three there. There was one up top in Cook, and there was like three. It was like Adore and Cam, and then I think it was Tyler Smith and left attacking midfielder as well. I'd honestly debate starting him at Crewe Alexandria. He showed more fight than any other player on that pitch today. I think obviously after that performance, there's going to have to be a lot of changes to the match day squad. I'd probably bring in McDonald, and then I'd honestly start Poynton, especially with Andy Cook up front as well. Playing a narrow formation with wing-backs who don't attack is not suiting Andy Cook as well. A man who, especially Andy Cook, who needs a goal as well, it's just not going to work. Last season, we played with wingers, we got results. Andy Cook scored. We were one of the top scorers in the whole of Europe last season, and we've just changed the whole philosophy. I'm still baffled with it. I will always be baffled with it, regardless of the outcome this season. Why on earth have we changed up the philosophy this season that worked last season? Granted, we didn't get promoted, but we were so close, and it only needed a few tweaks, and we've just completely changed the whole philosophy around it. I'm so baffled with the decisions that are going on at this club at the moment. Like Jake Young, for example, 3 games, 3 goals, 1 assist. He got 2 assists in it yesterday. 2 goals, 2 assists at Wrexham. And he scored an absolute cracker as well on his Swindon Town debut at the county ground. And then obviously you got Aboisa as well. Grant, I'm not going to really dig into that one too much because his hamstrings were made of glue. Glue? Maybe stringy glue.
Pritt stick as well.
Yeah, Pritt stick. We'll go with the Pritt stick that's been hit by a bus. Because he barely played any minutes, but fair play to Albo. He's obviously getting some minutes at Grimsby, and there was no doubt he was a good player as well. Just wasn't fitting at Bradford because clearly he had some hamstring issues. But the one with Jake Young, Ryan East as well, players who definitely we need right now. I said it on Twitter yesterday. Players like Odyssey, players like Ryan East, players like Jake Young would solve nearly 99 of the 100 problems we've got at Bradford City right now. Some explosiveness off the bench, some wide ability. We've got some good passes in Ryan East, and we've got electric players like Jay Young, and a good defence like the good defender like Timmy Odesina, who works in a back three, which Mac Hughes is trying to play. It's just not working. But yeah, Bobby Poynton, I think he needs to start at Crewe as well. Obviously, if we're going to integrate him into that team, I think he's going to need to get a start at some point as well. I think Crewe's the perfect one to get his start at, a team that probably aren't nailed on for anything more than a lower half mid-table finish. I think it's a great opportunity for Bobby Poynton to show him what he can do and obviously change up the system as well.
Yeah, you mentioned a few things there. I'll start out with this whole complete rebuild that we've had. I did want to actually bring this up. We were so close at last season. We only needed a few tweaks. We needed just maybe a goal-scoring midfielder, an attacking left back, and for the large part, we had a really, really good structure. And for some reason, we've completely ripped it all up. It's basically been a rebuild. It's like we sacked a manager and brought a different one in because it's a completely different system and a completely different style of play. And I think League Two is very simple and very basic and really easy actually to get out of, and we're massively overcomplicating it. You just need a good goal scorer, a decent goalkeeper, a pretty solid defence, which we had all these things last season, and we just needed a bit of energy, a bit of legs in that midfield. And now we had Patterson come in as well. Ryan East, I thought, deserved a lot more game time last season. I was really baffled to see him go out of the door from a playing point of view. I understand that he wants to go out and get minutes, and I'll never ever begrudge a player for wanting to do that. But he should have got more minutes yesterday. Would have been a perfect opportunity for him because he brings legs, he brings energy. Jake Young, while he was inconsistent at times, it's League Two. Every winger in League Two is inconsistent. Even the best wingers who've been playing at Bradford City, they've had poor games, they've had off days. Jake Young was never going to be an 8 out of 10 every single game. Charles Vernon, Mark Marshall, all these sort of wingers were inconsistent. They had bad games. And you see Young now actually getting a manager who believes in him. And he's, that manager is now reaping the rewards of that. Young's absolutely smashing it, and fair play to him. I think he would have really suited the 3-5-2 system we were playing with 2 strikers, and he would have been a good partner for Andy Cook, and he'd been a good option if we weren't to go direct and keep it on the floor to maybe partner Tyler Smith if Andy Cook wasn't working. And for me personally, it's just baffling the way that we've gone down this really interesting rebuild recruitment strategy. And we've signed again some more not this season, but in the past signed injury-prone players. You've got a number of players out through injury, who've suffered with injuries in their career. And it does now mean that we've had to give Bobby Poynton this opportunity, and we'll get it back onto him here because I think he deserves that. But should we be in a position where we need to be bringing on academy graduates because all our other players are crocked? I don't know, to be honest. And we'll get on to the leadership at Bradford City in a moment. We'll move on then to Harry Lewis before we do that. It's another red box for Harry Lewis. I don't know what's going on with him this season, but he just seems to be getting worse and worse by a game. He's been beaten at his near post once again from a free kick, and he wasn't even anywhere near it. And Smallwood is absolutely fuming with him because, yes, obviously Smallwood gave the free kick away, a bit of a stupid free kick, but Lewis has once again been beaten at the near post, and it's happened so many times. In every league game we've played so far, Lewis has been at fault for at least one of the goals we've conceded, and it's a massive contrast to last season, where last season he must have saved us about 15, 20 points, something crazy like that. This season, he's costing us points and goals every single game, and it's so frustrating. It's another direct free kick, and I don't know what it is. Instead of doing the pointless goalkeeping training where you just kick the ball straight out and hope they catch it, he actually does need to clearly work on free kicks, because it's a massive issue for us in terms of scoring free kicks and a massive issue for us in terms of conceding free kicks. So it makes sense for all parties for us to be training free kicks with Lewis in goal and trying some at his near post, because it's so many times, not even this season, last year as well, Crawley at home for an example, where Tilly smashed it in his near post. I don't think he trusts his wall enough, and if someone whips it into the top corner over the wall, then fair play. We saw that with Ethan Chislett last season when we played Wimbledon at home. Fair play, you hold your hands up, it's a great goal, but you've got to trust your wall a lot more to block the shot and block the attempt on goal, and he just doesn't seem to do that. He seems to be wanting to try and maybe make that brilliant save on that side rather than focusing on his own side. And it's just so frustrating. I mean, the second goal, could he have done better with that one? Potentially. I don't think his positioning was the greatest, and the penalty's a penalty. Again, just dives out of the way, fought the penalty. So, again, maybe the research wasn't right there. I'm not really too sure. But Lewis, again, for me. And don't even get me started on his kicking as well. Oh, my goodness me. His kicking was absolutely abysmal yesterday, especially his long distribution. It's just absolutely shocking. Every time he tries to go along, Andy Cook's waiting for it. And Andy Cook's then having to do like a 15-yard sprint to try and get anywhere near it. It's just so frustrating to watch. And I really do think this Barnsley stuff has got to his head, because he's a massive contrast from last season. And he'll come out and say over and over again that he's completely over and done with it. But I would beg to differ massively, because he looks a shadow of himself last season, and it's such a shame to see, to be honest with you.
If there was any truth to it, I think Harry Lewis is probably looking back on it now, probably regretting his decision to stay here. I mean, I certainly would be anyway. I think, obviously, when you're liked by the fans as much as Harry Lewis was, granted, he probably did that on his own with his fantastic performances and his personality last season. I think, obviously, I'd be regretting that decision as well. It's obviously probably a higher league, and yet again, if he's doing this in League Two, you debate whether he's going to be doing it in League One. But I generally think this Barnsley thing is, especially with the way it was publicised as well, I think obviously it could have been handled better. It was kind of, when you looked on the hashtag, it was all you were seeing: Harry Lewis, Barnsley, transfer, leaving, last game, all that kind of stuff. And we saw it at Getafe as well. He just didn't look in the right headspace. There was rumours that he was crying before the game at Getafe. Not sure how much truth there is to that, but he's definitely got to his head. I mean, I think we've considered 5 or 6 goals this season. Only one of them wasn't a set piece, and it was one of his mistakes as well. I'm not sure what Mark Hughes is not seeing. It's so obvious to see, and Mark Hughes clearly isn't correcting it. Why are we not training set pieces in training? Because evidently we can't defend them, and it's leading to goals, points dropped, etc., etc. I'm really just beginning to wonder what's going on here, because Andy Cooks can't score. Harry Lewis has got no hands. It's all falling apart. And you look at it and you see what happened last season. Andy Cook, Harry Lewis, easily our best players last season. And when they're not playing well, shock horror, the team doesn't play well. And it's down to recruitment. You can't just rely on Harry Lewis and Andy Cook to get you promoted. We saw it last season. Andy Cook nearly scored 35 goals last season, and we just finished inside the playoffs. Harry Lewis, one of the best keepers in the division, and we just finished inside the playoffs. They're two of our key players, and they're not performing. And you've maybe got to look at Mark Hughes, because it seems like he is relying on them two players to try to get us out of the division, especially when you're playing one up front as well with mediocre strikers at best. They're just Harry Lewis. I'm not sure if we maybe even need to bring in another keeper as well. Colin Doyle, obviously, I don't think he'd cut it in a Vanaramanov, to be honest. He's way past it. I think if we just leave him to concentrate on his goalkeeping coaching, not only would it benefit Lewis, but probably benefit us as well. We need to bring in another goalkeeper to just challenge Lewis, maybe even bring him in for another game, just to kind of give Lewis a reality check. Obviously, he will be starting every single game without fail, because you don't bring in Colin Doyle if he's had a bad game. Let's just be honest, he is not one of them players you can bring in, or one of them backup keepers you can bring in if someone's having a bad game. He will start every game without fail. So I think it's maybe worth taking a look at bringing in a keeper just to kind of ground himself a bit, and Harry Lewis to just think, maybe I need to just get my head down here, because there's another one that's ready and waiting to challenge for my spot. And if I'm not performing, if I'm not working hard enough, it's just going to disappear in a matter of seconds, and someone's going to be taking my place. I don't care how liked or how well you did last season. Last season, you've got to concentrate on this season now. And I think definitely another backup goalkeeper needed, because Doyle's not going to cut it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think that could be a big reason as to why, he's not playing at his maximum. I don't personally believe, he's got no competition really, and he knows he's going to be playing week in, week out. Colin Doyle is obviously nowhere near good enough. He's far past it. And Heath Richardson's only, 19, 20, something like that. So he's still making his way. He needs a loan move out to step 3, step 4 maybe of non-league. And when you know you're going to be starting week in, week out, you do take your foot off the gas a little bit. And I think getting another goalkeeper in, whether that's a permanent backup goalkeeper who knows they're going to come in as backup, or we get maybe a Premier League loan in. I'm not really too sure what the solution is, but we clearly do need to get some competition in for Harry Lewis and give him just a kick up the backside, because it's not good enough with what I've seen so far from Harry Lewis. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love him. He's been one of my favourite players that I've seen at Bradford City, but these performances can't go on for much longer. And if they do, he's quickly going to go from being a fan favourite to someone who we kind of want to move on in January. It seems a little bit like the Dion Pereira situation. Obviously in his first stint with the club, he was absolutely loved by the fans. And then we wanted him back. He came back and he didn't really perform, and it didn't really work out for him last season. I know it's slightly different. Lewis performed way better than Pereira did in a much better team, but it's just, a slight comparison that you can make there, that Lewis he needs some competition, and he needs just a real reality check, really, that he's not untouchable. He is droppable. Yeah. And I'm not saying that we should go out and, make them start the next game, because obviously players are allowed to make mistakes, and he's in a bad patch at this moment in time. And I really, really hope that he does come good again. But it's just so frustrating seeing countless goals this season where he should have done a lot better with. And it's not just goals, crosses into the box as well, constantly flapping and dropping crosses. It's so, so frustrating. And I can't imagine it helps the defence then, really, if they're last season they had the confidence in Harry Lewis. This season, I think they're slowly losing confidence. And as a defensive unit, that then makes your defenders and your fullbacks a lot worse, because they don't have as much confidence in the keeper, and they're maybe then having to overcommit to try and really get a block in, rather than potentially just letting it run and thinking, yeah, your keeper's definitely going to save that. So I certainly don't think that it helps. And I do think getting another goalkeeper in would definitely be the best solution. Yeah,
I agree with that, to be honest. This window has just been so underwhelming, and I think we didn't need Harry. Obviously, it's probably not his fault. He's probably going through a bit of obviously lack of confidence at the moment. Probably that Barnsley thing is definitely probably one of the key factors as to why he's not doing well. But I think definitely we need to start just putting our foot down. We've got 11 days left of the transfer window, and we need about 4 or 5 signings. It's not going to happen. We'll bring in probably Tom Elliott on deadline day, no one else. We need a striker, probably a midfielder, at least 2 or 3 wingers. Let's be honest here. If we're trying to change up the formation, we need 2 or 3 wingers. And I get Chapman's coming back, but I think there's still a little bit of uncertainty whether or not he'll be allowed to play for Bradford when he comes back from his injury. So obviously you got that to deal with as well. And I did obviously another goalkeeper to back up Lewis as well, and just something off the bench that we can bring on. There's 4 or 5 or 6 signings that we need with 11 days to go, and you saw it in Hughes' interview multiple times this season. He just doesn't seem arsed, to be honest. He was arms folded at Morecambe on the dugout, just doesn't seem to care, not trying to be out. He wasn't. You saw Derek Adams. He did not sit down that whole game, and he absolutely outclassed us yesterday. Even when they were 2-3-0 up, he was absolutely screaming at his team for issues, and he ended up probably getting booked for it as well. He was one of the bookings for Morecambe yesterday. Obviously, he didn't really show that for us, but yeah, Mark Hughes, he just seems disinterested to try and make a change at the moment. Him, Glyn Hodges, Mark Troom. Glyn Hodges was out of his technical area more than Mark Hughes was that game. I mean, what does that say, to be honest with you? There was no intent for Mark Hughes to win that game. He's just stone-faced. Every post-match interview, he was stone-faced. And he admitted that we weren't good enough yesterday. But no shit, we've got to change it up. And you're so stubborn that I wouldn't be surprised if we are one change unchanged at Crewe Alexandria. He's not seen the bigger picture here. We are in serious trouble. If we don't bring in 4, 5 or 6 signings before the end of the window, which is very unrealistic, but it needs to happen if we want to get anywhere this season, we could be in big trouble. I just don't think Hughes is urgent enough. And I think he's just too stubborn, whether or not that's because he can't bring anyone in because Steven Jett's not suggesting it, or whether he can't bring that in because Stefan Rupp's not invested. This is what I mean. Everything's a domino effect and it all trickles back to the same person. And it all branches off to other people. People need to start doing their jobs right, otherwise Bradford are going to spiral down to non-league football.
Yeah, I think there is a new rule that came in this season about you only allow one person stood up inside the technical area. But when Hodges was sat down, Hughes should be up and he should be, saying things to his players and stuff. And when that second goal went in, if I were the manager there, I'd have run onto the pitch and dragged Smallwood off the pitch by the scruff of his shirt and just dragged him off because that was absolutely embarrassing. And he just sits there, arms folded. And I think that is a bit of a problem because it seems more like he's doing us a favour rather than he's 110% committed. And I'll give him credit at the end. He made sure all the players came over and clapped the fans, but they didn't exactly come over to us. They were halfway in between the edge of the penalty area and the halfway line. It was more of a half-assed attempt, really, rather than, there should have been players coming right over, walking right past the goal. And I'm not saying come right in front of the fans because I'm sure it wouldn't have been the nicest of receptions, but they should have clapped us a little bit more. And I just felt like a lot of the time it's a bit forced, really, rather than them actually wanting to show their appreciation to the fans. I remember Ben Foster did a clip saying that not really many of the players will actually care about the fans. And I think that is just a massive problem in football, really. But yeah, it's just so frustrating. I mean, we could go on all day here. We'll move on to our final box then, and it's leadership at Bradford City, and it's a red box. Now, this goes for Stefan Rupp, Ryan Sparks, Mark Hughes, Steven Jent, whoever you want to blame. It's basically just a big red box for Bradford City because whatever the hell we saw yesterday was just, like you say, a massive domino effect. No investment from Stefan Rupp. If you don't want to be interested, then just sell the club. And we've clearly had inquiries in the past, and I think it's just a big issue that Stefan Rupp's valuation for Bradford City is clearly too high for what investors want to see. And I mean, we saw with the Wagme stuff, we could have potentially been a lot worse with Wagme than what we are with Stefan Rupp. And, at least we're not Berry and all that sort of stuff. But the thing for me is you're not going to get this significant fee that you probably bought the club for because we're a depreciating asset. We've been on the decline for a number of seasons now. Last season, we're our first season where we've actually gone further up the league than the previous year in Stefan Rupp's tenure, which is just absolutely criminal. And I don't know what the figures were. I don't know what he bought the club for. I don't know what he's investing. I don't know what he wants to sell the club for. But the reality is he is going to make a loss. And from his point of view, it's, well, why would I sell if I'm going to make a loss? From that point of view, I get it. But for the sake of the football club, he just needs to sell. We don't have any assets. We've got a couple of players and the license to use the badge. That's about it, really. No training ground, no stadium that we own. It's just, you're never going to get that figure back, especially when we've been relegated from League One into League Two. Our squad is considerably worse than it was when it took over. The value of it is considerably lower, and he just needs to move on, and we just need a bit of fresh change. And I don't know what that then would mean for Ryan Sparks if we were to get a new owner. Normally when you get new owners, you get a new CEO in. And I think Ryan Sparks does genuinely have the club's best interest at his heart.
Yeah.
And I think from a marketing point of view, and I think this is the general consensus over social media, marketing has been brilliant from us. You know, the way we've increased our revenue coming into the club has been absolutely brilliant. And there's been so many more sponsorships and partnerships and all that sort of stuff. We saw recently new partnership with Gordon Gibb. I know people's opinions on that were very mixed and stuff, but he seems like he does want the best for the football club. But the footballing decisions, he's proven time and time again, he's not qualified enough to do that. Giving McCall a new contract, sacking him. Giving Truman and Sellers an 18-month deal, sacking them a few months later. Just stupid decisions like that. Derek Adams, on paper, should have worked and pretty much got himself sacked. He was asking to be sacked. And then Mark Hughes, at the time, it seemed like a good appointment. And you look at it from a point of view of where he's managed in the Premier League and all that sort of stuff. But then when you actually watch his football, it's so boring. It's so defensive. Every time we go one goal up, we just park the bus, and you're not going to get the fans singing and chanting and getting behind the team when they're playing such boring football and we're hanging on for dear life. It's nail-biting stuff. You know, I remember we played some of the best football in McCall's second stint with the football club, and that was one of the first real seasons where I really felt like a Bradford City fan, and we played some brilliant football, and we didn't just sit back on 1-goal leads. And Hughes, like I say, at the time seemed like a good appointment, but looking back, he just wasn't the one. When you had Steve Evans and Richie Wellens available, I know people's opinion on Steve Evans, very mixed and stuff, but as an actual football manager, he's proven time and time again. He gets promotions out of League Two. He did really well at Gillingham as well, especially in that first season. Nearly got them in the playoffs, one of the lowest budgets in the league. And Richie Wellens, for me, I think he's an absolutely brilliant manager. He's proven that with Leyton Orient again. We've definitely got a bigger budget than these teams who have been able to get promoted out of the league. And looking back in hindsight, there was definitely better options. If we were to sack Hughes now, who's an option out there? There's no one really. I mean, people said Darren Moore. I don't think that's realistic because of the wages. He wanted 4 times his Wednesday wage when they went up into the Championship. So I don't think that one's realistic. And then you look around, where do you go there next? Maybe a foreign coach? I'm not really too sure. But again, it's just a massive domino effect. And then Stephen Gent as well. The recruitment under him there's certainly been more misses than hits, in my opinion. There's been a couple who've been fairly in the middle, but there's been a lot more major flops than what there has been major successes. And again, I think that's a big issue. Who are we really appointing from that point of view? You look like a good appointment on paper, but hasn't really worked out so far. And again, does that come down to budget? We can only recruit a certain style of player because of lack of investment from above. And we could go on and go on with that cycle over and over, but it's just so annoying. And I feel so not disconnected because I felt like a bit more connected with the squad last season, but I'm just losing interest in it. I don't want to be, spending my Saturday traveling to Crawley and Newport and, some of these clubs, Forest Green, and I just don't want to do that anymore. I'm slowly losing interest with this football club, and I've been going to pretty much every game since 2018, and I don't really have the interest to do that anymore last season. I went to every single game last year, and now this season I already just can't really be bothered. To be honest with you, I don't really have any plans to go to Newport. I'm not really sure I'll be bothering with Wimbledon. MK Dons on a Tuesday night, Sutton. It's just like any game that's over 2.5 hours. I just think, well, what's the point? It's a waste of time and a massive waste of money. I just don't really have much interest in it anymore. And we're 4 competitive league games into the season. And I think, I'm not going to say I speak for a number of fans, but there's certainly some people that I've spoken to who feel the same way. They're just not interested in watching League 2 football anymore. And I'm sure I'll still be there over the next couple of weeks, but I just slowly giving up, to be honest.
It's just getting so scary now. I mean, the future of this club is genuinely uncertain because the performances are not good enough. It's only going to get worse from here if Stefan Rupp does not sell the club. You're not going to get as much revenue in the game. You're not going to get as much revenue in the club as before. Sponsors are just not going to be bothered anymore because there's barely anyone coming to the games. You're going to lose sponsorships. You're going to lose fan revenue. We won't be able to be self-sustainable for much longer if this continues. Stefan Rupp, in fairness to him, he was sold a dream by Edim Rajic, and I think he's probably the main root of the whole debacle at this Bradford City Football Club. He's probably kind of fucked it up for all of us, really, because he sold Stefan Rupp a dream, and he's kind of backed into a corner now where he's just so stuck on what to do. But if I was Ryan Sparks, I'd be ringing him first thing this morning and just be saying, you've got to start just looking at buyers, because I saw something on Everything BCFC yesterday saying that he'd received 25 offers for the club during his tenure.
I think that might be more inquiries maybe than offers. I feel like if it were an offer, then Simon Parker and stuff would have done more media. I think there'd be more media coverage if it was offers, and inquiries, I think maybe is the right term.
Yeah, but there's just there's so much wrong with this so much wrong with this football club at the moment. I just, like you said, we could generally go on for so long about this just loophole of just everything that's happening at the moment. We don't own a stadium. We don't have the funds to buy our stadium. We train at a school. We don't have any funds to go anywhere else. There's no assets in the club. No one's going to buy the club. Like, I just could go on forever, really, with all the problems that are going on at the moment. And I think if you lose at Crewe and we lose the next few games, no one's going to be arsed anymore, because this club is just slowly dropping. And the fact that fans were celebrating, we got playoffs in League Two last year, just shows how bad the club's expectations have fallen. When Stefan Rupp took over, we were on the brink of the Championship, and now we're scraping playoffs in League Two, and fans are saying, oh, well, Stefan Rupp, we're in the League Two playoffs last year. Oh, you can't sack Hughes. He's Premier League manager, won the Champions League. And, oh, he's done this, he's done that. He's got us in the playoffs. It's not good enough. We should be in the Championship right now, pushing for the Premier League. That's what we were told. False promises, zero investment. He has to go. And I think we haven't seen many protests, if I'm being honest. Obviously, there's the odd McCall out, Adams out chance that we saw. But I think with this one, we've got to protest, because there's no way we're going to get our opinions heard. And things need to change fast as well. It's not something yet will be done overnight, of course. But the faster we get people finding out about what Stefan Rupp's doing to the club, and we need to start pushing our opinion out more, I think that's when things are going to start changing for the better. We know Sparks attends every single game. If he's hearing 20,000 Bradford fans calling for Rupp's head, he's going to obviously start contemplating himself as well. And when you're Ryan Sparks, you're already in a difficult situation as it is, with your probably job on the line if Mark Hughes doesn't get promoted this season. You're going to want to get on the fan side, and Stefan Rupp's going to be in a lot of trouble if the whole fan base starts to sing Rupp's head, for example. And I posted it on Facebook yesterday, and there's fans saying, oh, you appointed a Premier League manager. No, he didn't. He's not invested a single penny during his tenure at the football club. I think Edin Rajic invested more than Stefan Rupp ever did for this football club. So he didn't appoint Mark Hughes at all. It was all Ryan Sparks. If Stefan Rupp would have appointed Mark Hughes, do you not think maybe Stefan Rupp would have got an email as well? Or why has it gone to Ryan Sparks then instead? Stefan Rupp has just done nothing for this football club apart from take us backwards. And you're always going to get the people saying, oh, well, why don't you do a better job? It's just a pathetic excuse, really. We all know that I can't do a better job than Stefan Rupp because I don't have enough money to buy Bradford City Football Club. That's just the plain and simple facts of it. And then there's people saying, oh, at least we aren't Bury, at least we're not playing Park Avenue. I would rather be watching us play Park Avenue at the moment, if I'm being honest, because it's probably more interesting than us being in League Two at this point. With Mark Hughes, it's such a difficult one. Do I think we need to sack him? No. Would I be bothered if he was sacked? Not really. Ryan Sparks, he's got to get it right. He's got to have a conversation with Stefan Rupp and just, if you're not investing, please go. You said it earlier. He's obviously going to make a loss. We don't have any assets. We don't own the stadium. We don't own the training ground. We've got a shite squad. There's just nothing really appealing to investors. But if you get an offer, you've got to take it, regardless of how much it is. Obviously, we've seen clubs that are getting listed for £1 and stuff like that. But you just got to take a loss here, Stefan. You're a losing battle. It just proves he's not asked about the club. He was fucking racing yesterday. I saw on his Instagram, he was racing like this German qualifying round, and he's more bothered about his cars. He's got to sell up, in my opinion. And if he doesn't sell up fast, it's just, we could be Scunthorpe, let's be honest here. We could really be Scunthorpe because we just aren't getting investment. And, you know, there's the argument that investment obviously clearly doesn't matter, but it's just, it doesn't make things worse in a sense. And I think with an owner who's going to give money into the club, he can afford managers like Darren Moore who are proven in the EFL. Mark Hughes is just not proven, is it? I mean, the only reason he's got his jobs in the Premier League is a complete technicality because of how good a footballer he was. He's achieved nothing in the game of football, and I think we are in deep trouble if something doesn't change.
Yeah, one thing I would be really interested to know is what was Derek Adams on about when he always said there were problems behind the scenes at Bradford City. I really, really wish he just came out one day, or even now that he's got nothing to lose at Bradford City. Yeah. I just wish he came out and said what they were, because there must be something. And I know Derek Adams just said stupid things at stupid times, but there clearly must be something that was going on. You know, he said, I can't remember what it was, but something about clarity about what was going on behind the scenes. And he just never came out and said what that was. And I remember, I think Jamie Rayney did an interview with someone and he got asked about it. And Jamie Rayney said he didn't know. And I really, really wish that we just knew what that was, because it seems like there is some sort of deep-rooted problem at the club. And you look at everything that we've changed since we've been relegated, the only thing we really haven't changed is the ownership. And like I say, he's not going to want to sell the club for a loss. As a businessman, from a business point of view, he's not going to want to do that. So we've just got to hope and pray that some really rich Donny just comes and offers a stupid amount where he's actually then going to, or she, this new investment owner person is going to actually invest money. And like I've said before, investment doesn't always guarantee success, but it definitely does help. And you think, how much longer can this go on for? I think if we don't get promoted this season ticket sales drop to 11,000 in my opinion. Then if it's another season, it's down to 8 or 9, and you'll always get that core of 5, 6, 7,000 who go every single week no matter what. But people are not going to put up with League Two football for much longer, especially with how expensive football is coming. And it's not just that, it's time as well. People take days out of work and stuff to go and watch Mark Hughes' football. And from the top to the bottom of what we've seen so far this season, it's simply not good enough, and it's completely not acceptable. And people are more than entitled to their opinions. If they want to disagree with us, that's more than fine. Please, get your thoughts in down in the comment section down below, because it is a big debate at the moment. And say we go on and win our next 3 matches, nothing still changed for me. Nothing's really changed for me for a number of years now. Stefan Rupp still needs to sell the football club for us to progress. I don't think Ryan Sparks needs to go personally. I just think he needs his job to be changed slightly. He's clearly really, really good from the marketing point of view, but I personally just don't trust him with the footballing decisions. And where do we go from here? Say we lose the next 4 or 5 games, Hughes obviously will then have to go. Who do we appoint then? What does that mean for Ryan Sparks from an appointing manager's point of view? Who's going to be available by then? There's so many questions. And obviously, don't get me wrong, I would love to see us get promoted this season, and then that means we probably be able to get a reasonable offer in. Ruck might sell, but I think us getting promoted at the moment is so unrealistic with what we've seen so far this season, and with a manager who's so happy to sit back on 1-goal leads. And I feel like I'm repeating myself over and over here, but I'm just so annoyed and frustrated after yesterday. And I really am just losing interest, to be honest with you, in the football club at the moment.
Stephen Gent needs to go. I wouldn't say Ryan Sparks needs to go. I agree with you there with the statement about him going into marketing. I think he's obviously he's probably one of the reasons this club still exists, because of how much marketing and revenue is brought into the club. I think if we didn't have him, we'd be long gone by now. We'd probably be Scunthorpe, Bury, teams like that.
I think the process thing, though, is so difficult, because when you've got an owner who's just not interested at all, he's not at the games, he's not going to see it. Ryan Sparks might mention it briefly on a phone call, but how do you protest against someone who's so interested? Like, if he sees a video, maybe he just goes, all right, fair enough. And then he'll crack on with his day, because he's not that interested. And I don't think he's a bad guy. He's nowhere near as bad as Edim Rahic, who actually was a bad guy, nearly killed the football club. He's not doing anything, and it's just pretty pointless him being there. And like what I've mentioned, a million times so far, I understand from his point of view that he doesn't want to sell the club because, he's going to make a loss. And I don't honestly know what we do. I genuinely don't know what the solution is, because it's like we're at a bit of a standoff. He's not going to sell until he gets a significant offer, but we don't get that significant offer until we get promoted. Are we going to get promoted with the current setup of the club? I don't think so. So what do we do? It's just one big massive circle, one big massive merry-go-round. And I would absolutely love to be coming on here every single week and, saying everything's rosy, giving 6 green boxes out, saying it's brilliant to be a Bradford City fan. But it just never seems to be that way. We're so cursed as a football club. And I'm just drained. I just don't know what's next. And we're 4 games into the season. I'm absolutely just fed up.
If maybe Wagme came in and we moved Ryan Sparks to marketing and we brought in a big CEO who took charge of the football operations, it might have worked. And Crawley, they're in the top 3 at the moment. Things are finally going well for them. And obviously, it's Wagme, let's be honest here, they're not amazing.
It's just an example, though, what you're saying. You're not saying we should be getting Wagme, but they're just someone who, obviously publicly showed the interest.
Yeah. Touching on the Wagme thing as well, there was a statement that came out, and I'm not sure where he said it, but in there somewhere he mentioned a proud custodian. A proud custodian would be someone who turns up to all 46 games, league and cup, invests money into the club, and is involved in a day-to-day basis. That man was racing during the Morecambe game. He just doesn't care, and I don't think the club's really even for sale. Maybe that's a reason why no one's investing, because the club's not for sale. You've seen the Wagme situation. Ryan's Stefan Rupp said he didn't want to sell the club, and maybe that's what's pushing investors away, because he said the club's not for sale. And obviously with Bradford City, playoffs this year, and League One and Mark Hughes, investors will say, well, Stefan Rupp's doing all right job there. Maybe I'll go look at someone like a Colchester who's struggling at the moment and they can get back to where they be. Or I'll go to Wimbledon, because they used to be in the Premier League back in the day. I'll go there, invest my money there, and I'll try and take them as high as I can. Bradford City is just not an interesting project as it once was, and I think there's just so many issues, and we could go on for another 12 hours, about the situations and the problem, but I just don't know where the solution is, and something needs to be done urgently.
Yeah, and I think another problem is, Bradford as a place itself, it's an absolute dump for 90% of it. And I think, again, it's just these small 1-2% that just don't really help. We are going around in circles. We've been recording for over an hour, so thank you for your patience and thank you all for watching. I'm sure all the happy clappers won't have really enjoyed this. It has been a pretty negative one, and fingers crossed, we go on and win every game for the rest of the season. We get promoted, and just things change, but he just certainly doesn't look that way at this moment in time. Please make sure to get your thoughts in down in the comment section down below. Your thoughts are more important than ours, so please make sure to drop a comment in. We will leave it there, though, for today's video. If you have enjoyed, make sure to drop a like on there for us. If you could try and 80 likes on today's video, that'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're new as well. We are on the road to 8,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed if you haven't already, with that post notification bell on. It's free to do so, and it does massively help out. If you somehow enjoyed, thank you very much. Even if you haven't, please make sure to get a comment in as well. Like I say, your thoughts are massively appreciated, and we do read all the comments, so make sure to go and get your thoughts in on the things that we've talked about in today's episode. Lots of things, only 6 things was meant to. It feels like 10 hours ago since we were speaking about Richie Smallwood and his absolutely disgusting actions yesterday. Thank you all very much for watching, though. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you all next Sunday for the crew reaction, where hopefully we've got 3 points.
Yeah.
Peace.
Robo!